how old did ancient humans really get? It's easy to picture a brutal world where life was short, where few people ever saw their 30th birthday. But is that really accurate? Did our ancestors truly live such brief lives? Or could they, under the right conditions, survive well into old age? Today, we'll uncover the truth about ancient human lifespans, the challenges they faced, and the remarkable evidence showing that some lived far longer than we often imagine. Life expectancy versus lifespan. Before diving into prehistory, it's important to clarify two concepts: life expectancy and lifespan. Life expectancy at birth is an average, heavily influenced by infant mortality. For example, in some poorer modern nations, as many as 1/3 of children die before the age of 5. This drags the average life expectancy down, often to below 60 years. But those who survive childhood often live just as long as people in modern industrialized nations. This means that when we hear prehistoric humans only live 20-30 years, that number reflects high childhood death rates, not that adults dropped dead at 30. Insights from hunter-gatherers. To estimate prehistoric lifespans, researchers studied 12 hunter-gatherer and forager groups across 4 continents. About 63% of children survived to age 15. Of those, 68% lived to at least 45. Many reached their 60s and 70s. Among traditional hunter-gatherers, average life expectancy at birth ranged between 21 and 37 years. But adults who reached 45 could often expect to live into their late 60s. In fact, the most common age of death for adults was around 72 years, not so different from modern populations with advanced healthcare. So clearly, prehistoric people weren't suddenly dying on their 30th birthday. Why people died young? If many survived into older age, why were averages so low? The study found illnesses caused about 70% of deaths. Violence and accidents made up about 20%. Degenerative diseases accounted for around 9%. Interestingly, small mobile groups couldn't sustain large-scale infectious diseases like smallpox or measles. Those only emerged later in larger agricultural societies. Case study: Aboriginal Australians. Early accounts describe Aboriginal people reaching their 70s, 80s, and even 90s. Despite high infant mortality and tough physical lives, many lived long thanks to active lifestyles, natural diets, and strong family support systems. This shows that while averages were low, individuals could and did live into advanced old age. The role of elders. In many indigenous cultures, elders are treasured. Inuit elders pass down knowledge of weather, navigation, and animal behavior. Shipibo-Kanibo elders in the Amazon are healers, holding essential medicinal knowledge. Australian Aboriginal elders act as mediators and leaders, maintaining law and order. Far from being abandoned, elders often played critical roles in survival and community cohesion. Geronticide, myth and reality. It's often imagined that ancient societies discarded the elderly as useless mouths to feed, but evidence shows this was rare. Yes, geronticide, killing or abandoning elders, did happen, usually under extreme hardship like famine or harsh winters. But for the most part, elders were respected, cared for, and integrated into their communities. Fossil evidence of elder care. Homo erectus, the old man of Debunking. At a site in Georgia, researchers discovered the remains of a Homo erectus man who had lost nearly all his teeth years before death. Unable to chew food, he must have been cared for by others. Proof of compassion nearly 1.8 million years ago. Neanderthals, Shanidar. In Iraq's Shanidar cave, the skeleton of a Neanderthal man revealed he was one-armed, partially blind, crippled, and deaf. Yet he lived into his 40s or 50s, meaning his group fed, protected, and supported him for years. Other Neanderthal fossils also show tooth loss and injuries consistent with long-term care. Cro-Magnons. In Upper Paleolithic Europe, Cro-Magnon fossils reveal adults in their 40s and 50s, many with arthritis and healed injuries, evidence they lived long despite hardships. Agriculture and the Neolithic Revolution. When humans shifted from hunting and gathering to farming, life changed dramatically. Food surpluses meant survival no longer depended on daily hunting, but diets became less varied, leading to nutritional deficiencies. Larger, denser populations also allowed infectious diseases to spread. In some regions, life expectancy at birth actually dropped to 20-25 years during the Neolithic, compared to 30-35 among hunter-gatherers. Even so, adults who survived childhood and avoided disease could live long lives, often into old age. Some researchers say ancient humans barely made it past 30, while others argue they lived much longer. What do you think? Comment your take. Let's see what the community believes. When you picture ancient humans, do you imagine a world where no one lived past 30? It's a common idea. Life was brutal, short, and survival was rare. But here's the truth. That image is more myth than reality. Yes, prehistoric life was hard. Disease, accidents, predators, and violence were constant threats. And high infant mortality pulled average life expectancy way down, sometimes to just 20 or 30 years. But that doesn't mean adults were all dropping dead in their 20s. Far from it. Let's break it down. Life expectancy versus lifespan. Life expectancy at birth is an average that includes infant deaths. In some societies, as many as a third of children didn't make it past age 5. That skews the numbers. But if you survived childhood, your odds of living into adulthood, and even old age, were much higher. Studies of modern hunter-gatherers give us a window into the past. Of those who reached age 15, most lived into their 40s or 50s, and many even made it to 60 or 70. In fact, the most common age of death among adults in these groups was about 72. That's not too far off from modern societies without advanced healthcare. So no, people weren't keeling over the moment they turned 30. They could, and often did, live long lives. Fossil evidence of old age. The fossils back this up. Take the old man of Debunking, a Homo erectus from Georgia who lived about 1.8 million years ago. He had lost nearly all his teeth years before he died. Without the ability to chew, he should have starved, unless his community helped him. The fact that he lived so long shows real compassion and social support, even in such a harsh world. Or look at Shanadar I, a Neanderthal from Iraq. He was partially blind, likely deaf, crippled, and missing an arm. Despite these severe challenges, he survived for decades, probably into his 40s or 50s. That means his group cared for him, fed him, and protected him. His life is powerful evidence of Neanderthal humanity and empathy. We also see similar stories in early Homo sapiens. Cro-Magnon remains show people living into their 40s and 50s despite arthritis, genetic conditions, and serious injuries. Clearly, ancient humans valued their elders. Why elders mattered. And that raises the question, why keep the elderly alive when resources were scarce? The answer is knowledge. Elders carried wisdom. How to hunt, where to find water, how to survive droughts, what plants could heal, and how to navigate the land. They were storytellers, teachers, and keepers of tradition. Among groups like the Inuit, the Shipibo in the Amazon, and Aboriginal Australians, elders have always been cultural anchors, mediators, and healers. The same was almost certainly true in prehistory. So instead of being a burden, the elderly were often essential to group survival, busting the myth. This brings us back to that old myth, that ancient humans barely lived to see 30. In reality, infant mortality lowered the averages, but once people survived childhood, they could expect decades of life. And yes, some lived to their 70s, or maybe even beyond. So next time you hear someone say, people back then only lived to 30, you'll know the truth. Our ancestors weren't doomed to short lives. They faced danger at every turn, but those who endured often lived long, meaningful, and respected lives. And that's something worth remembering. If you found this as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Drop a comment below. Do you think you could have survived in prehistoric times? And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden history of humanity. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.